Welcome to the Agents Journal, the Agent Stories series. And today we're sitting down with another Horton's partner, Emma Goff. So we are going to give you, I suppose, the ability to be a fly on the wall as we talk about the ups and downs of a self-employed estate agency. And hopefully, if you're considering going self-employed, or you are already a self-employed agent, the contents of this conversation could be useful to help you get started on the journey, or as another way to get support for what is often a really difficult but very rewarding journey. So let's get into it. Emma, thanks for coming on and doing this.
No problem. Thank you for asking me.
Well, could we start right at the beginning? Could you give us a bit of a background on when you became an agent and kind of what made you decide to enter the industry?
Okay, so it was just over 8 years ago now, and it wasn't really an active decision to become an estate agent or to even really go self-employed. I'd previously been in roles that were training people in the workplace, delivering qualifications, helping people get back into work that had been long-term unemployed. So I'd always been in, I suppose, enabling roles, which is what I always considered myself to be, sort of customer service, and a supportive role. However, I was made redundant, and at the time I was looking for something that would fit around my young family and give me some flexibility. And it didn't really matter, if I'm being completely honest, what that industry was at the time. I just needed something where I could use my transferable skills and have a job, basically. So an opportunity was presented to me to become a self-employed sales progressor within, obviously, a estate agency, and it was for a team of self-employed estate agents. So I was completely thrown in at the deep end, having never been in the industry before. And I pretty much was, from day one, just learning as I was going. And I think just down to using sort of initiative, asking the right questions, I managed to get through it. And I think it gave me a really good insight and some really good foundations into the world of estate agency and how that sort of the post-sales part of the role would work. So then I was quite interested in seeing how the beginning part of that would work and how that would look. And I wanted to get out meeting people rather than sitting at home sales progressing.
Yeah.
So I then became quite quickly a viewing assistant, and I had lots of training in terms of shadowing, and I did the exams for the sale of residential property. And then I became self-employed estate agent. Have been ever since.
So that time when you're working as a sales progressor, you dropped in the deep end, learning as you go. Was the plan always to them? Was it being able to see what the fully fledged agents, I suppose, were doing? Was that inspiring to your time? Were you thinking, oh, that's what I want to go on and do? Or was it more of like a natural progression? Like how did that work? How were you inspired?
Initially, it wasn't. It was literally a means to an end. With probably in my head at the time, I probably thought I would eventually go back to some sort of training role. However, it was really quite quickly that I just sort of really enjoyed it, and I almost felt that I was enabling people at that point, but just in a different way. So I could still be that sort of supportive person, and I wanted to then just explore that further. So initially it was just a bit of a stopgap, and then it really sort of just transformed into more.
Yeah. So, and at that time, obviously for those that listening won't know this, but obviously I do. At that time, it was Purple Bricks, wasn't it, that you were in?
Yeah, it was.
So, and this was a time when Purple Bricks were super busy.
Mhm.
So, I guess those sort of markets are great because not just the market was in good shape, but also Purple Bricks brand awareness was growing so rapidly that in comparison to most people's journeys, you end up doing like a few years worth of transactions, I guess, in a much more condensed time period, which is a great way to learn because you get in the completions under your belt just through the fact that you're in such a busy environment, which is amazing. But you then moved on, staying self-employed, and this is really unique because you spent your whole career in estate agency as self-employed, but then you moved on to more of a startup environment, didn't you? How did you find that transition, and what were the biggest challenges, I suppose, getting up and running doing that?
Yes, so this was a real sort of eye-opener, because as you say, I'd gone from Purple Bricks where I could potentially go to bed and then wake up with 3 valuations in my diary for the next day. And I think perhaps quite naively from my point of view, I felt that it would be not that easy, but I hadn't fully appreciated that I was going from that to very much starting from scratch, and how I didn't appreciate how difficult it is to self-generate business continually. So yes, I realized that quite quickly, and it was, as you say, very, very different.
Yeah. Well, it'd be good to dig into both how you've approached generating business, and also what you were just saying earlier about enabling people and how that motivates you and the satisfaction you get from it. But I think we've covered a good timeline there, going from Purple Bricks, this transition, and then the new focus on self-gen. But yeah, before we get into the detail of the ups and downs of all of that, could you just summarize kind of what your business looks like today, where you focus in, and yeah, a bit of background on what someone would see from the outside as of 2024?
Yeah, okay. So, of course, time has moved on, and I have moved to obviously be a partner agent with Hortons yourselves. And so I went in with a much more prepared mentality. I definitely was a lot more clued up on how this was going to look and how this was going to pan out and what I had to expect of myself. So in terms of how it looks now, so in properties that I deal with are, so they can be anything from sort of £100,000 ex-council areas, right up to perhaps in certain postcodes it will be your traditional 3-bed semis, and might get some 4-bed detached properties, and some maybe sort of ex new builds, you know, the ones with the long leaseholds on them on certain estates. So that's sort of what I do focus on. My areas, as you know, are in Birmingham and North Warwickshire, pockets of those, and I do a lot. Well, I get a lot of my business, or have done since starting with Hortons, via word of mouth, social media, and that has been key, I think, in me starting with with Hortons that in order to try and keep that momentum, particularly with my social media, I am trying, as difficult as it is, to be active on there daily, if not multiple times daily, where I can. I think that's crucial.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I suppose it's the equivalent of your shop window these days, isn't it? If people start seeing boards or they get past kind of your name recommended to them, like it's weird to think that, yeah, these days they're not going to go down a high street and find you. It's, oh, I'll search you on Instagram or something. So, yeah, more valuable than ever. But yeah, cool. Okay. Well, let's kind of get into a bit more detail on the journey and the ups and downs of self-employment. You can choose what you define as kind of your first 6 months. It could be your first 6 months with Purple Bricks, or when you've transitioned into kind of needing to focus on self-gen, or you're already obviously in the first 6 months with Hortons. But I think regardless of whenever you make a big change, the 6 months are probably the hardest in the stage of anyone's business, aren't they? Because for you, it's rebuilding under a new brand and people getting to understand that. And before that, it was, like you said earlier, about just having to go out and find business, and perhaps how you underestimated the value in self-gen. Yeah, so far, or in your first 6 months, where's most of your business come from, and is there anything you would have done differently if you could rewind the clock and start again?
Oh, there's quite a few questions in there, actually. What would I do differently? I think probably previously, from leaving Purple Bricks, I think I've learned lessons now, which is what I'm taking forward in my first 6 months in Hortons. I don't know whether I'm answering this question correctly, but so I think previously I found self-generating business quite overwhelming, and there was just so much area, so many properties, so many options of how to prospect and canvas and what to do. I think there was probably times where it then demotivated me, because I felt there was so much to do, and I just kind of was happy to maybe plod along a little bit with just getting those recommendations. However, now what I am now trying to do and I think I've changed my mindset, because it also keeps me a little bit more organized and it makes me feel calmer, is to try and focus on perhaps a smaller pocket of my territory at a time. So where I have got some properties already, I'm trying to now sort of focus on that postcode for a little bit, sort of doing my 2020s, new properties that come on the market. I'm trying to get out on that road straight away. And like I say, my social media, I'm trying to be active on there every day. So that is sort of what I'm trying to do now, to sort of be focused.
Yeah, so it's not casting your net too wide, but knowing there's an area that you want to be kind of laser focused on.
Yes.
I would say that, to be honest, that's the sort of feedback you hear from other agents, like maybe a year or two in, like this benefit of hindsight you've got coming into that. Gives you a real advantage, because what you hear from agents that have been doing it for a year or more is that they then find an area that they get momentum in, and then they start gravitating towards it because they're reacting to the fact that that's somewhere that they've got momentum. Whereas but to find that area, you have to cast your net really wide, and you waste a lot of time going into areas that you don't get any proper momentum. Whereas what you're saying is doing that from day one and just trusting it's working.
Yeah, that's it. I think from going from previous self-employment, initially self-generating, it was too wide, it was too big for me to try and manage. And now I think I've learned from that, like you say, and I'm trying to just focus and keep it organized as well, because I think you've got to, because I'm one person and there's a lot of area to cover.
Yeah. Well, it leads me on to my next question, which was all about kind of how you maximize your efficiency and your time day to day. Because you said earlier you found it quite overwhelming, suddenly knowing that you've got to be spinning all these plates. Is there anything that you try and do day to day about how you manage your time, like a routine that you're in, like anything that you found that helps you kind of, I suppose, get control of and get the most out of your day?
Yeah. So every morning, literally the first thing I do before I even get up is check what's come on the market in my postcodes. And again, I have stopped looking in all my postcodes first thing in the morning. I look at the current postcode that I'm focusing on. And then, so I know then, right, okay, these are the roads I want to try and get to today, tomorrow at the latest.
Yeah.
Then I think about my social media, like, what am I going to put today that's going to be interesting, that maybe isn't going to just be a property that I'm listing, or a property that I've sold, even though that's amazing, both of them, but maybe how is it going to show me and who I am, because I know that's what people love, again, which I have learned from not doing that as much previously, and that is what I'm trying to take forward now. And then I will go through my inquiries and look at my to-do list that I wrote yesterday to myself for today, because for some reason, Adam, yesterday's Emma, or how is this correct? Never tomorrow's Emma to remember what she's got to do. But I always do remember, but I can't rest. I can't switch off until I have done that list and almost prioritize what needs to go first off that list.
Yeah.
And then
I'm the same. It's almost like just a brain dump, isn't it? And then it's like, okay, well, all of that's there. Now I can relax.
See, it's like, it's okay. I know that. And I have remembered it the next day anyway, but it's like it just doesn't trust tomorrow's Emma. But and then obviously any appointments that I've got, but those are the few points that I do try and make sure I do every single day.
Yeah.
And then sorry.
So just to recap then, it's a case of you've planned the day before, but you the order priority for things in the day is getting up to speed on what's happened in your market, thinking about what you are going to put on socials, which I suppose is what am I going to communicate to my audience, like just planning ahead for that, which is really great, because the problem with social media is that it's actually relatively easy just to pull your phone out and post something on Instagram, isn't it? But it's so easily overlooked if you let it slip through the net that day, or you don't concentrate on time and being decisive about what you're going to put up. Like if you put it to the back burner, it's the sort of thing which is like easy just to get to the end of the day and go, I forgot to do something. And because it doesn't rely on anyone else. It's not like someone's going to be waiting for a phone call or anything like that. So I think it's building it into a routine of being really disciplined to go, what needs to go today. That I think is a good tip, rather than just going with the flow and hoping something comes up that's worth doing. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit more practical. So I like that. It's good.
Yeah.
Where were you going?
Sorry.
I interrupted. You were saying, did we get onto your appointments?
Oh, Yes. Oh, that's it. So of course, any appointments that are booked in, I always try and keep a day, usually midweek if I can, aside for sales progression, which of course at the moment early days, so I've not got too much going through, but previously that is something that I used to try and do, just so I know that in my week I had allocated space for sales progression, because when you've got sort of a number of files going through, obviously, as you know, Adam, what you think is going to be quick sales chasing can sometimes be sort of an hour just trying to get one thing sorted, and it can always escalate into other things. So I always like to, it makes me feel comfortable knowing that I've got that sort of admin time, which is something that I will have going forward. And I think that's pretty much loosely my to-dos of the week and how my day-to-day looks.
Brilliant.
Another thing, which I don't even know whether this might have been something that you inspired me to do. I feel like we might have had a conversation about it, but what I actively now try to do is speak to somebody, anybody, every day about what I do in some capacity.
Love it. Yeah.
That is something you said, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think I know as part of our onboarding, it's looking for like the simple habits that you can build up, and I've wrote about this on the Agents Journal as well, of just like simple habits that compound over time. And if you do that every day, minus you're busy on the weekends and you go on holiday, but let's just say 250 days of the year you make an effort to make a connection and have a meaningful conversation with someone who previously wasn't aware of you. It could be a buyer on a viewing, couldn't it? It could just be someone who's they've not really paid attention about who they're booking it with, or what they haven't invested any time in looking at our website or anything like that. And we can get and just enlighten them to what being with working with a partner means and what the differences are. And they go away and follow you on Instagram or something.
Yes.
They follow you on Instagram. Like doing that over the next couple of years is 500 extra fans know who you are and would think about you if they're thinking of moving. Like, but trying to go out and do an advertising campaign next week that delivers 500 people that are properly engaged is either not a reality or extremely expensive. Whereas this is something, you just do a little bit each day. I actually think half of self-employed agency is just about consistent habits. It's everything you've just said, isn't it? Getting up, understanding your market, putting something on Facebook, making a new connection. Like, these aren't any big, like, earth-shattering activities. It's just the right things done over and over and over again.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. So yeah, I think it's just about keep talking, isn't it, to people as well? And it's such an easy thing to do. But like you said, well, it is hindsight, like we've mentioned earlier. I probably wasn't talking about myself and what I do enough, and now I'm just doing it.
Yeah, love it. Is that through people you meet anyway, or are you doing things like being more likely to spark up a conversation with like the person in front of you in the queue? Like, to what extreme do you take it?
Imagine just tapping someone on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I am a self-employed. I have to tell somebody every day to date you.
Yeah. I think that would go down really well. No. They'd be like...
No. So family and friends, they are thoroughly invested in me, and luckily I do have a really good network of people around me, family and friend wise, and some friends are small business owners, so we know the importance of talking, and we do always talk between ourselves of how things are going, and that also always prompts my sort of network of friends to share on my social media, which they all do, which is great. But I don't know. I do try and get it naturally into a conversation. So,
Yeah.
for example, if the delivery lady, who I've now got to know, you know, the Amazon delivery,
It comes every day.
she goes, that's why I can't get out canvassing. Because
Yeah, got
I'm
delivery
waiting
coming.
to remind my every delivery driver that I'm an employed agent. But so I would just, you know, through conversation, because we do have a conversation when I see her, I have told her that I am, you know, self-employed estate agent, and where I'm sort of covering. She's even had leaflets off me before and
Oh,
delivered.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
With
all about being just an approachable, chatty person as well, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And it becomes easier when you have you got your way to have one of those conversations, and then you get some evidence that it works and is worthwhile doing, because then you don't think twice about it next time, because you're thinking, well, last time I just, like, I don't know, it could be like getting a haircut, and you think, oh, okay, we'll talk to them about work, and then before you know it, they're saying, oh, I know someone who's moving, and then you're thinking,
Yeah.
I need to talk about it all the time. You never know. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
and it becomes a lot easier. So yeah.
Does, or you could just sort of say, which is a good one, I'm just giving all my secrets away. Oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they go, XYZ, what do you do? And you're like, and then they could easily say, like you said, oh, actually, oh, I'm thinking about putting my house on the market.
Yeah. And then you're in.
You're in.
And it's just from making the decision to ask a question.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love it, and I love that it's simple stuff that makes the difference ultimately, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this kind of leads us on to the final few things I wanted to talk about. Because obviously part of the point of the Agents Journal, it is to share ideas and inspire people that are already on the journey. But I know there's a significant number of people on the mailing list that are employed at the moment and have aspirations to be self-employed at some point in the future. And for a lot of people, well, I know at least multiple members of our team have gone from first thoughts about going self-employed to actually making the jump, maybe 2 or 3 years between actually thinking about it and doing it. There's a lot of preparation. It's a big leap. So hopefully this final section can be something that we can refer people to that are thinking that it might be right for them. So I've got 3 questions for you. First one is there anything that you didn't fully appreciate or think about before going self-employed that you wish you had?
Originally, probably the financial side of things. Now, obviously, in hindsight, again, I had the finances in place to cover me for X amount of months, which I definitely would recommend to anybody thinking of making the move. And also to have some finances there for some marketing that you would want to do.
Yeah.
To have like a little bit extra.
So have something put aside, not only to give you the breathing space to start the process and start building your pipeline, but also to reinvest directly into your marketing.
Yeah, and I think just the most that you can have, the more that you can get together before you make the move, the better. But that's also a very tricky decision to make about timing, and you've got to cut it off at some point, I suppose. If you're going for it depends what position you're coming from, but yeah, for me it was all about timing.
Yes. Yeah. Cool.
Sorry, what else was it, Adam, there that you asked? Did you?
Just what didn't you think about or fully appreciate that you, I suppose, should have done?
Yeah, that's it. Probably the financial side of things, and just how hard it can actually be at times, and how when there are those hard times where you think, oh, where's the next listing going to come from? You've had a little bit of momentum and then it stops, which it always does. Actually, you do have to dig deep. And I didn't realise how actually those waves can come, but you can just like get yourself out of it again, because they don't last forever. Those little dips they don't. And I didn't fully appreciate that. I thought when my first dip came a few years ago, that was it. I was in my dip and then I wasn't. So now I know sometimes these dips will come. I just ride through it, keep my head down, doing what I'm doing, and you get to the other side.
Yeah. I think something that I try and do when I'm talking to new agents is be really open about these sort of things. It's almost to the point where it's kind of like I'm trying to put them off being self-employed, because you can't go into it with rose-tinted glasses, can you? And I think the industry as a whole, I think there's a bit of a risk of people getting this impression. They see a handful of people that are very vocal, and especially with agents that are incentivized to recruit other people, it's very easy to paint a picture that it's just plain sailing and you'll be earning more money than ever and won't have any problems. And it's so far from the reality, because when you're, let's say you're newly self-employed and you've got those cash reserves to get you through the ups and downs, and the downs seem long and painful, and you're waiting for something to come around, reaching into reserves. It can be super stressful, can't it? But part of the, I suppose, requirement to actually being successful is riding it out. And but if you can do that, and you understand that that's part of the journey, the end result can be amazing. The flexibility, the financial rewards, like, it isn't a pipe dream. It's real, but it's like you just can't expect it to be an easy journey. It's painful, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It can be.
Yeah. But it's good. It's important that we talk about it as well, because it's the reality of it, not for the faint-hearted. My next question was, what qualities or experience do you think are essential for a self-employed estate agent that they need to be successful?
I think you've got to you've got to be a really good organizer. You have to be organized, which sounds a little bit obvious, but if you're not organized, it's just going nowhere fast. And I think you've really got to be in this industry. I mean, self-employed, no matter what, but in this industry, you know, you've got to be a really great communicator. You've got to be able to have honest, frank discussions and candid discussions with your customers. They've got to like you, but they've got to like you as well, because not just because they want you to sell their house and think that you can show people around and be lovely and enthusiastic. They've also got to be able to at some point during what can be a long process, they've got to be able to have these honest conversations with you, and you with them as well. And you've got to hold your nerve and believe in yourself. You have to be able to hold your nerve.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? So really, really good point. Brilliant. And finally, either what advice would you give, or have you been given any valuable advice that would help someone who is maybe just about to hand in their notice at their employer to go on this journey? Anything that comes to mind?
Probably just things that I've already said, really. Just to be yes, you do have to go in knowing that there are going to be tough times, but there are always, if you sort of keep in mind everything sort of that we've discussed about being organised, having a plan, don't get overwhelmed, have your monies where they need to be, so you're covered. Yes, there are hard times, and I think as long as you then are reaching out to your team, because we're all in the same boat, we all have the ups and the downs, no matter how good some highs are for people, they're always going to have the quiet spells, the times where you feel like you're not getting some listings, maybe one after the other for some reason, and you're taking it personal, but you can't take it personal. You've got to have a bit of thick, you've got to have a thick skin. Again, when I first started, I know going back to the start of our conversation, but I didn't have thick skin and I didn't have broad shoulders, and I took everything personally. Don't get me wrong, Adam, you probably know already that I do still take things a lot to heart, but
I think there's a difference between having thick skin to keep pushing through, but also I think that's a natural quality of someone who actually really cares about what they do.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it's a scale, isn't it? Where if someone gets thick skin, you can assume someone's got thick skin, but it's actually because they don't care. But I think to be successful in a state agency, full stop, regardless of your employment status, it's only worth doing if you really love it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's more of a lifestyle, like, because if you are the sort of person who just doesn't care about the result and like delivering for your client, then all it means is that you're probably going to end up letting people down. So signal that it's no surprise that clients love working with you because of that.
Thank you. And I was just going to say, despite all of what again we've just sort of said about it being difficult, and you have to hold your nerve and be prepared, there's actually loads of good and that comes from it. And again, it's not even all just down to the financial side of things. It's about people wanting to use you because they want you, they've heard about you, and then people being so sort of grateful of the service that you've provided during perhaps what can be a really emotional, sensitive time, if it's a deceased estate and it's the parents, and you've supported them through that. And actually it can mean so much to the sons, daughters, the family, and you can really have an impact on people's lives without you realizing until perhaps the end of the process, and then they you don't really know the impact that you had, because you're going on your merry way trying to just keep everybody happy.
Where actually you're making a big impact, and
it's
fulfilling in that way, isn't it? In a way that when you are solely responsible for it, if someone gets to the end of the process and you've got the result they're happy with, and you kept the stress off them, and you've looked after them and made sure they know what's going on, and they get to the end of the process and go, thank God Emma was our agent. There's no other place for them to look other than to you, to delivery. And again, that's the difference between self-employed and employed agency, is that because of the nature of traditional employed estate agency, there are a lot of people that get involved. And sometimes when it's a team effort, it can be great if everyone's on the same page. But one of the vulnerabilities is you can do your bit with all the passion and all the dedication for your client, but if you're let down by other parts of the machine, it can take the shine off it, and it sometimes doesn't let you get to the end of the process and the client look back and truly appreciate what you've done. Whereas self-employed, you are fully accountable for everything. Interestingly, I don't think you can really appreciate that until you've got the first few completions over the line completely under your own steam,
Mhm.
because those will be the best completions you've ever done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least that's what I found.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Brilliant. Well, Emma, thanks so much for your insights and advice. I think anyone listening should be taking notes, because there's some real valuable insights into what the life of a self-employed agent is, and but also if you've listened to this and enjoyed it, I'd recommend checking out Emma on social media, and find her on the Hortons.co website as well. Because she's everything that we believe in as at Hortons, and does estate agency in the very best way. So Emma, thank you, and appreciate your time.
Thanks, Adam.